July 20, 1944. The war was lost, yet the madness continued. But within the highest echelons of the German military, a dangerous truth was taking root: the only way to save Germany was to execute the high command and seize control of the nation. This is the story of the moment brave men risked everything, facing down the darkest regime in history, and what happened when their desperate plan failed. By the summer of 1944, the Wehrmacht was drowning in the vast, bloody expanse of the Eastern Front. Cities were rubble, and the Allies had just stormed Normandy. For many senior officers, men who still held to the Prussian code of military honor, the moral collapse was as catastrophic as the tactical defeats. They watched their nation follow a madman toward absolute ruin, and realized their oaths had been corrupted. Despair hardened into resolve. They had to act, regardless of the cost to their own lives. The core of the resistance was a loose network of disillusioned aristocrats, diplomats, and career military men, bound by their shared revulsion. They knew that an armistice with the West was impossible while the Führer lived. Key among them was General Henning von Tresckow, who declared, "The moral value of the deed must be established before the world. We must dare to do it." Their plan, codenamed Operation Valkyrie, was initially designed as a contingency for a civil uprising, but they repurposed it for revolution. The chief agent in this deadly conspiracy became Colonel Claus von Stauffenberg, a decorated officer wounded critically in North Africa. He had lost an eye, his right hand, and 2 fingers on his left. His physical sacrifice mirrored his moral awakening. Stauffenberg was one of the few high-ranking officers with routine access to the Führer at his command post, the Wolf's Lair. This privilege became the instrument of their ultimate gamble: assassination. On the morning of July 20, Stauffenberg was flown from Berlin to Rassenburg in East Prussia. In his briefcase were 2 explosive charges, fitted with pencil detonators. The challenge of arming the bombs was immense, requiring him to use his limited fingers and remaining hand to crush the acid capsule, activating the fuse. Under intense time pressure and knowing failure meant a torturous death, he rushed through the agonizing process in a nearby office. A sudden change in location saved the target's life before the briefcase was even placed. Due to sweltering humidity, the usual meeting location, a thick underground concrete bunker, was moved last minute to a flimsy wooden barracks building known as the Lodge Barrack. This seemingly minor decision meant that the blast's energy, instead of being contained and amplified by concrete walls, would escape upward and outward through the thin walls and high ceiling. Stauffenberg, unable to quickly prepare both charges with his injuries, could only arm one. He entered the briefing room precisely at 12:30 p.m. The small room was packed with officers gathered around a massive oak map table, a crucial detail. Stauffenberg discreetly placed the heavy briefcase containing the 10-pound bomb directly next to the Führer's sturdy, solid oak table leg, then excused himself, claiming he needed to take an important phone call. At 12:42 p.m., the barracks exploded. Stauffenberg was already outside, walking towards the security perimeter when the blast tore through the building, shattering wood and glass, and unleashing a cloud of smoke and debris. Believing he had seen the fireball engulf the target, Stauffenberg and his adjutant, Lieutenant Werner von Haften, scrambled into a staff car and bluffed their way past the initial checkpoints, racing toward the airfield and the waiting flight back to Berlin. Back in the chaos of the ruins, the scene was catastrophic. 4 men were killed instantly or fatally wounded. Yet, shielded by the sheer bulk of the oak map table leg and the natural venting of the wooden structure, the target emerged stunned but alive, suffering only minor burns, a burst eardrum, and temporary paralysis in one arm. The high command was injured, but not decapitated. The critical phase of Valkyrie, the assumption of power, was about to begin in Berlin, based on a deadly lie. Landing in Berlin at the Bendler Block, Army headquarters, Stauffenberg immediately joined the effort to activate the reserve army. General Friedrich Albrecht, another key conspirator, issued the mobilization order, sealing off government buildings and arresting SS officials. For a frantic 3 hours, the coup appeared successful. Staff officers, believing the official order that the Führer was dead and the SS was launching a takeover, followed the commands to stabilize the Reich. But the news of the explosion began to leak. Key loyalists, especially propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels, managed to hold their positions. The tide turned irreversibly when Major Otto Ernst Riemer, commander of the Guard battalion tasked with seizing Berlin, was taken to Goebbels' office. Goebbels swiftly connected Riemer via telephone directly to the supposedly deceased leader at the Wolf's Lair. Hearing the familiar, though slightly strained, voice over the receiver was a moment of profound psychological defeat for the conspirators. Riemer was instantly convinced the coup was based on a hoax. He was personally ordered to crush the revolt, not support it. Within minutes, the soldiers who had been executing the coup turned their weapons against the men who had just ordered them. The game was up. Gunfire erupted within the Bendler block just after 10 p.m. A desperate, brutal firefight ensued between the loyalists and the remaining conspirators. Stauffenberg was shot in the shoulder. The entire operation dissolved into frantic confusion as high-ranking officers loyal to the regime stormed the Central Command Office, demanding immediate cessation of the traitorous plot. The collapse of the resistance was as swift as it was violent. In a dark, rain-swept courtyard outside the Bendler block, General Albrecht, Stauffenberg, Haeften, and another conspirator, Colonel Albrecht von Quernheim, were lined up. There was no court-martial, no pretense of legality. General Frum, who had briefly been detained by the plotters, now sought to prove his own loyalty by ordering the immediate execution of the leaders. As the headlights of a military vehicle illuminated the firing squad, the 4 men were shot one by one. Haeften, in a final act of profound loyalty, threw himself in front of Stauffenberg as the volley struck. Stauffenberg's last, defiant cry echoed through the courtyard before he fell, "Long life sacred Germany." Their sacrifice was not immediately successful, but their deaths confirmed the ultimate moral schism within the German High Command. The cost of Operation Valkyrie was staggering. More than 7,000 people were arrested in the subsequent purge, and nearly 5,000 were executed in horrific fashion. The assassination attempt failed, but the courage of Stauffenberg and his comrades stands as a testament to the internal resistance that existed within the regime. It was the moment that the official high command proved its total devotion to a losing cause, while a few brave men chose to die attempting to restore the honor of a nation descending into darkness.